And they're all shouting to try and get some work done at the near post. Razak gone into space at the near post instead, headed away from the 6-yard box. And the full-time whistle blows here at Parkview Road. It is Maidstone United who get a point at Welling. Welling 0, Maidstone United 0. From 7 wins in a row to 2 draws in a row. And Connor, in the grand scheme of things for how that could have gone for Maidstone United tonight, from the overall balance of play, I think that's probably a good point for Maidstone overall. In the grand scheme of the season, it's not great, and the overall performance tonight and the season as a whole is not great, but certainly looking back in a few weeks' time potentially, that might be a hard-earned point, because Maidstone could have easily come away with nothing there.
Yeah, I think in the first half you maybe feel like Maidstone should be getting a result here. I think then as that first half ended, Welling United had plenty more chances and were dangerous going forward. And then when the first half, when the second half started, I did feel like Maidstone United were certainly had that wake-up call that we needed later on against Farnborough. And I think there was moments in that maybe 80th minute around that mark when Welling were coming forward, and it seemed like all that would happen is as soon as they got the ball back, they came forward and there was something dangerous going on. I thought we were going to do well here to keep this point. And then as the 6 minutes of added time gets played, I did think that maybe they would still nick it, Welling. I think overall a draw is a fair result. Neither team managing to get better of the keepers. I think this evening is one of those games where both keepers have not too much to do, but certainly have a solid job done in terms of collecting the ball from any crosses and anything like that, any shots, that sort of thing.
Coverland the busier of the two there as well, Connor, to be honest.
Very true.
A couple of big chances for Welling there, but other than those 2 chances, of course, it's certainly even to a degree. But I do agree with your assessment. I do think Welling probably feel a bit aggrieved, and I've heard a lot of the locals here this evening since I've been here, and they've been playing well, and certainly they had more patches than Maidstone did this evening, and Welling could certainly have come away with all 3 points in the end tonight. They had the better chances, and Coverland again proving his worth could, for my money, be a player of the season, absolute stellar recruit for Maidstone. And I've mentioned in other reviews off air on JP on comms and things like that, and mentioned how the points that we could accrue, certainly in the early matches that we kept drawing Coverland, that's 1 point gained potentially purely because of Coverland keeping us in it. A few individual errors leading to spaces and a bit of fatigue, and it's not letting up though for Maidstone, because it's Saturday Tuesday for weeks on end now. We've got a long schedule. We've got Saturday Monday after an FA Trophy game as well, in the 3rd week of November as well. So many matches to come, and Maidstone United do have a bigger squad and probably a better squad than they've had for a little while. Yeah. And it is stretched somewhat by some of the injuries, but at the same time, they have got the bodies there. The bench did a job when it came on. Gabode getting some minutes. De Graaf probably not as effective as he was against Farnborough, unfortunately. Rafe Brown needing to come on to make sure that Eznolin didn't play a full 90, because it might have been a bit difficult for him to achieve that. Pedersen just on the pitch with a couple of Welling media types, and he certainly had a good game. As you mentioned, he didn't have too much to do, but certainly you mentioned the crosses. There was a lot of stuff that came from wide, wasn't there, that needed to be dealt with, and he dealt with all of that with quite aplomb. And there's been a lot of change when it comes to the goalkeepers here, obviously with Morgan retiring, getting his sole game, Holden being sent off and not being available, Edem coming in on the bench for Welling this evening as an emergency loan. So Pedersen to come on, and whether that's potentially a man of the match award that's been given by someone there, I'm not sure. Nothing over the tannoy, but that might be a reflection of Welling's view of things this evening, that they may well have stayed in it, with Pedersen making a few good saves. I still think Coverland's were the more Hollywood noticeable, the ones you're going to pay attention to in the highlights package at some point tomorrow.
Yeah.
But Pedersen probably almost as equally. I'd probably say he's less earned a point for Welling, because Welling probably be more annoyed at themselves for not getting a goal this evening, because, as you mentioned quite a lot in commentary, that Adom with aplomb, not the Adesanya Dom. He's played very well today. There's that Dom, isn't he? He's probably our man of the match, other than the keepers, you'd say.
Yeah, I think so. And also in that second half, Gasarate I thought was in and around it, and I think that name came up often. I think picking things up in the middle and just cleaning things up and getting the ball back forwards to those players that were so impactful, especially Tanga when he came on. I thought he was a tricky player for Maidstone to deal with.
It was only the 2 subs that Welling made, Connor, wasn't it? Maidstone had to make all 3 because there was a defensive one they needed for Cheese minutes, of course. But in terms of Papadopoulos as well, was a name that was, Papadopoulos and Tanga, both of them were, for the want of a better phrase, those names were not out of my mouth for the last 20 and 30 minutes this evening. They really did dictate play, and that midfield did get overrun. So I don't know whether it's going to be too knee-jerk from George to see whether the system is going to need to be altered potentially for Weston-super-Mare. I know they're off the back of they're still playing, but they are 3-2 now against Torquay.
Wow.
But Maidstone's unbeaten run continues. That's at least 9 unbeaten, 7 wins in a row, and then the 2 draws. Don't know where exactly that leaves Maidstone in the table, because again there's so many matches still going on this evening.
As it stands, Maidstone United are third with Yeovil at top spot, and then Bath City in second.
Okay, that's considering that's not the worst of points for Maidstone league table wise, when you think Bath have obviously given Taunton a bit of a kicking, Torquay are losing, St Albans and Farnborough have crept up, Hampton and Richmond, my relegation picks, 8th place. What do I know? Naffle, honestly.
As we're talking about things like that, Sean, I just want to pick up something. Maidstone United least conceded goals alongside Aveley and Braintree Town.
Yes, because Chelmsford, thank you for bringing that up, because I did make a note of that. Chelmsford drew 3-3 at home to Dover, who did have the best defence before last night's National League South games. One more National League South game tomorrow to be played, that haven't liked to play on a Wednesday. Chelmsford like to play on a Monday. It seems to be a local council thing that happens. But Chelmsford did have the best defence. Maidstone joint best defence. 3 sides on 12 now. I believe you've just stated there, conceded, and 12 in 13. Won a game. Still, hardly the highest standard from all the sides in the division, but at the same time, it's still, as long as you're scoring at least more than 1, i.e. 2, you're getting double that, and your goal difference, I think Maidstone's goal difference isn't vastly superior. I know it's sort of top 5 or 6, and certainly scoring wise this evening, I don't think Maidstone created too many clear-cut chances. I know Manchester had a couple of headers first half, so Andrew Smith found himself in on goal on a couple of occasions this evening. Just a couple of final passes were a bit lacking as well, because that midfield was, I'd say, probably overrun by Papadopoulos and Tanga getting out wide. And that chance at the end that Papadopoulos initially had, and then Adom smashing it onto the post, and then you did wonder there that all that hard work that Maidstone had put in to keep this run going, unbeaten or otherwise, and just for a moment there I think we'd all sat back and realised, that one's in at the far post, that's 1-0, and the thwack came before the noise travelled from the fans behind the goal. And I think at that point you were wondering, is it going to be at least not Welling's day, because certainly Maidstone weren't having too much of a day of it, but certainly conceding a goal wouldn't have been out of the realms of possibility for Maidstone this evening. And as we've already mentioned, Welling possibly a bit hard done by.